Amid the fresh, free produce handed out every Wednesday at Dobbins High School in North Philadelphia is a man on a mission.
What role does food play in the gun violence crisis?
I mean, it's instrumental. I mean, the gun violence crisis for me is a poverty issue, is a whole lot of other issues. The correlation to me with lack of food, lack of resources, is it puts a person in heightened survival mode all the time.
Donnell Drinks is determined to save his community from the epidemic within the pandemic, the out-of-control gun violence that has spread, much like a virus, to every corner of the city.
Do you feel like you are that boots on the ground?
I know I'm that boots on the ground.
He and his friend Don Ike Jones are the founders of the anti-violence and mentoring organization called GROWN. It stands for Gaining Respect Over Our Worst Nights. Nighttime is when Donnell is usually on the clock responding to crises. The calls that come in are often for shooting. Sometimes there's a death. Right now, Philadelphia's homicide rate, more than 300 this year, is on a steady climb to uncharted territory.
Unfortunately, we had 309, 310, wherever we're at this moment. But if it wasn't for the concerted effort of so many people, we might be at 500 already. You can't quantify the things that don't make the news. You can't quantify the impact of somebody that we talk down off a ledge or we convince to put their gun down.
But for those who don't drop their guns, the impact goes far beyond the bloodshed.
We talk about numbers, and we forget their people. We forget their families destroyed.
What do you want people to know about your son?
That he was a person. He didn't deserve to die. He didn't deserve to die. Nobody gets to play God.
Terry Jenkins lost her 19-year-old son Tejan to gun violence on July 24th, 2020. Someone murdered him close to his mother's house in Philadelphia's Mantua neighborhood.
He was never given a chance to live his life. His life was taken from him. He was never given a chance to be a father or go off to college or secondary school or open his barbershop like he dreamed of doing.
From barber training to skiing, even trips to the beach and a cruise getaway for his 17th birthday, Terry tells me she exposed her son Tejan to everything she possibly could, even private charter school and plenty of after-school activities.
Wrestling, football, chess, keyboard lessons, tap dance, mentoring programs, swim clubs, swim lessons, swim teams.
For Terry Jenkins, the pain isn't only the loss of her son, his killer still walks the streets.
It sometimes feels like there's no justice. Not just in Philadelphia, but really in the country.
That's interesting hearing you say that because you spent your career in law enforcement. You rose to the ranks of captain.
Terry was a correctional captain in Philadelphia's Department of Prisons. She started out nearly 30 years ago as an officer in charge of cell blocks. Despite her background and all her efforts, Terry could only control so much in her 19-year-old son's life.
He was hanging with the wrong crowd. He was hanging with the wrong crowd, and he was warned. You can raise your child, you can plant all the right seeds, you can do everything in your power. But unfortunately, the parent isn't the only thing that shapes a person.
You can look at anybody in your neighborhood, the guys with the fast cars, the money, the girls, and think that that's a powerful way to live. But don't stop it there. Read the rest of the story. Either it's death, incarceration, or the death of those around them, ruined relationships, missed opportunities. So that's what I bring to the table. I've been at the other chapters. I've been incarcerated for 27.5 years. I've seen the other chapters.
At 17, Donnell Drinks took a life. First, he was sentenced to death for the murder. Later, his punishment was reduced to life in prison. Then, after 27.5 years behind bars, he was released following a Supreme Court decision striking down juvenile life sentences.
Can you take me back to who you were at 16, 17 years old?
I was misguided. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was dealing with a mother with substance abuse, an absentee father. All these things that are so common and pervasive in our community. So when I'm talking to somebody, I know what you're feeling.
His past is why Donnell Drinks does this work today. He started to reform his life in prison, trying to sow peace among fellow inmates. He recalls one of his early encounters with a correctional officer helped spark that change.
She was compassionate to the point of allowing us to be people.
That correctional officer was Terry Jenkins.
She's one of the people that, in hindsight, that influenced my thinking, because there's been a lot of people in the system and out of the system that set me on this path and this trajectory to change. And I'll credit her as being one of them.
It kind of gives me chills, you know, meet so many people over the years, and I've worked in different areas of the prisons in different ranks, and I often said if I could just change one person's life, then my career wasn't in vain.
Their paths still cross today as a formerly incarcerated convicted murderer and a mother of a murdered son, both committed to saving lives by sharing their stories.
Things come full circle, how this is a woman that I know dedicated her life to protecting and saving the community through her efforts in law enforcement. And for her to lose a son, it just speaks to how nobody's exempt from the violence.
I'm Rosemary Connors, NBC 10 News.